And so welcome very much, everybody. Welcome to our 11th Reading Online Sports Economics Seminar. We're delighted this week to have David Ung from University of Jinan-University of Birmingham Joint Institute. He's going to present to us today on the beauty premium. Please, as with all of our seminars, ask your questions in the chat room. I'll be manning the chat room. And please also keep your microphones to mute. And David will speak for about an hour or so. He said it has about an hour or so, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end where I'll ask questions that are from the Q&A window, and also there'll be some time at the end for an open mic session. So without any further ado, David, please do take away your talk.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present my work. It's a great honor, and I hope it's going to be also fun for you. So let me see if I can share my screen with you. Can you see? Can you see my slides now?
Yeah, if you want to make it a full screen for the presentation as well, then.
Yeah, is it full screen? Do you see full screen?
No, we see how you would edit the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. I'm in full screen.
You might need to share the window where the presentation is, because I can.
Yeah, I chose that. Okay, I'm going to reshare.
Okay.
Okay. Do you see full screen now?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay, great. So this is joint work with my former master's student, who's now a PhD student in marketing at University of Florida, and Junsan Zhang, who's at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. This paper is on the college admissions contribution to the labor market beauty premium. So there's quite a bit of work showing that beautiful people earn more money. But surprisingly, the beauty seems to matter more for men than for women. And in most jobs, and not only those with extensive dealings with customers who might have a taste for beauty. Overlooked in this literature is the possibility that the beauty premium actually originates prior to the labor market, and specifically in the college admissions process. So this possibility is particularly interesting for the West, which openly admits to colleges in the West, which openly admit to giving preferential treatment to athletes and students with high school leadership experience. So beauty may well contribute to the physical charisma or confidence necessary for election to leadership positions among high school students, given that the voting public and even economists seem to exhibit a bias for beauty in the election of their leaders. So we tested for this college admissions contribution by sampling 1,800 online social media profiles across a wide range of universities in China and in the US. Given that the universities in the US use extracurricular activities and grades in the decision to admit students, we hypothesized that the beauty of students may increase in the rank of the university they attended in the US. In contrast, in Chinese universities, they use standardized test scores and almost exclusively to admit students. So despite the shortcoming of standardized tests in terms of the stress they impose on students, they are at least ostensibly beauty blind. Still, there's the possibility that beauty is correlated with academic. I'm getting an echo. Is correlated with academic ability, but there is a large sample twin study which shows that there is no relationship between facial attractiveness and intelligence. So we hypothesized no or a weaker association between the beauty of students and the rank of the university attended in China. Here's a summary of our results. So we find that the facial beauty of Chinese students of neither gender is correlated with the rank of the school attended. For the US, we find that the facial beauty of white men, who are 74% of our male sample, increases with the rank of the college attended. When we separate our sample of white men according to whether they attended private, public, or technology colleges, we find a stronger correlation for alumni of private colleges. And we expected that because we expect that private colleges are less regulated and therefore have more discretion. We also find a weaker correlation for alumni of technology colleges. And we expected that because we thought they would rely more on standardized tests. So the implications we suggest of these findings is that the lack of correlation for Chinese men and women, US white women, minorities of both genders, white men at tech colleges, supports the twin study finding that beauty is not correlated with intelligence. We contribute by providing evidence that beauty is not necessarily related to academic ability more generally, so as measured by standardized test scores in China, socioeconomic background, which is likely to contribute to students' ability to prepare for these tests, and therefore high scores. The results we have for US women suggest that beauty is not necessarily related to non-academic ability sought by colleges either. For example, leadership qualities alone, not combined with other factors specific to white men. So the results for the US women, and in particular US white women, controls for, in a sense, for a bunch of factors, and we can rule out for what could be causing the correlation for white men. So some non-academic factors interacted with characteristics related to the beauty of white men seems to be driving the correlation that we find. And I'll discuss how college admissions preferences for athletes and students with leadership qualities might, as a byproduct, help explain our findings for white men after the main findings. Okay. So let me try to give you a sense of the impact of beauty on wages. A 1 percentage point increase in beauty rank corresponds to a half rank increase in the rank of the college attended. That translates into roughly a 3% decrease in salary 6 years after graduation for a 10% decrease in beauty rank. So this is sufficient to explain the labor market beauty premium in the West for men, which ranges between 5 and 20% for the coarser measure of below, at, or above average looks. These previous studies control for college education, but not for the rank of the college. Our results suggest a college admissions contribution to the labor market beauty earnings premium for men in the US, and also suggest the importance of controlling not only for college attendance, but also for the rank of the college attended in future studies of the labor market beauty premium. Our results may help explain the surprising greater labor market beauty premium for men in the US, which is across jobs and seems independent of exposure to customers. Our results also suggest that the labor market beauty premium for men and women in China and for women and non-whites of both genders in the US arises after college. So I'll do a brief review of the related literature. It's quite a large literature. I won't have time to go over it in detail. So there's many empirical studies which show a robust labor market beauty premium around the world and in many sectors since Biddle and Hammermesh's seminal work. There are the theories of labor market discrimination by beauty parallel those of other forms of labor market discrimination, for example, by race, and fall under two broad categories: taste-based, where the discriminated characteristics enters directly into the utility function, and statistical, where the observable characteristic, in this case, beauty, is correlated with a characteristic interest, for example, good social skills. Both forms of discrimination can apply to both employers or customers. Employers can merely like better-looking employees without believing that they are more productive, in which case the discrimination is taste-based. Or they could use looks as an indicator of social skills, which enhance productivity, for example, promoting cooperative behavior among other workers, in which case the discrimination is statistical. Similarly, customers, for example, purchasers of fashion magazines, can derive utility directly from better-looking workers, or they can use beauty to infer other characteristics, for example, the competence of doctors because of a possible statistical association between beauty and cognitive and non-cognitive skills. From the inception of the literature, there has been a noted, surprisingly larger beauty premium for men than for women. So let me show you a survey from a previous paper. The studies in red are the ones that show a larger premium for men. The studies in blue are the ones that show a larger premium for women. Take the example of Hammermesh and Biddle's 1994. They find that for men, the above average looking men earn 5.4% more than average. Below average looking men earn negative 8.9% less than average. Above average women earn 3.9% above average, and below average women earn negative 5.5% less than average. So moreover, the importance of looks revealed through employer surveys of the interaction with customers indicate little explanatory power on the cross-sectional beauty premium. While the constancy of the beauty premium across jobs can be explained by employer discrimination, that would not seem to predict that the premium for men is larger than for women. A number of researchers in the beauty premium literature have used CV correspondence studies to test for discrimination among employers. These have been widely used to explore ethnic and gender discrimination. Such field experiments, correspondence studies with employers can decrease the effects of confounders through random assignment of beauty to the characteristics associated with beauty. For example, intelligence, which in the CVs is signaled by education. So confirming prior empirical findings of a labor market beauty premium, a CV correspondence study in Argentina finds that distorted photos of real people designed to make them ugly were less likely to obtain a callback. So with the exception of the pronounced premium for better looking women in office support, receptionists, customer service jobs, roughly the same positive premium for both genders across jobs, irrespective of the degree of customer contact was found. And a significant premium across a number of occupations was found in China, including such areas as software engineering, which has a minimal customer contact. Ruffle and Studener show in a randomized resume audit study in Israel that only better looking men were more likely to get a callback to a job application. And even in jobs which beauty plays no obvious role, like account management, budgeting, industrial engineering, and computer programming. Better looking women were less likely to get callbacks than average looking women, but only when screeners were in-house HR personnel, who the authors found in a follow-up study tend to be female. So they hypothesized that the beauty penalty for better looking women, the beauty premium for better looking men, could be due to sexual jealousy of in-house HR personnel. Despite the many findings of labor market discrimination by beauty, the existing literature in economics has largely ignored the possibility that the source of the labor market beauty premium may begin before entry into the labor market. The source of the labor market beauty premium is important both to understand labor market discrimination and also to better target anti-discrimination regulations based upon personal appearance, which have already been enacted in some states and proposed elsewhere. There's a small economics literature on the relation between academic performance and beauty. Grade point average is predicted by physical attractiveness for grade school students of both genders in England, and for female but not for male students upon entering high school. However, the association between attractiveness and grade point average becomes negative for males and insignificant for females when personality and grooming are controlled for. In the US, high school facial attractiveness can account for a wage premium up to the mid-30s of age. And within an elite women's liberal arts college in the US, a negative correlation was found between beauty and academic productivity related traits as measured by SAT score. A lack of correlation was found between beauty and productivity related traits among lawyers who graduated from a law school and among experimental subjects. So to our knowledge, our study is the first test for the relation between beauty and the rank of the college attended. And we also point to a potential new channel for the labor market beauty premium for white men, which we think is a possible byproduct of the preferential treatment colleges offer in admissions for athletes and high school students with leadership experience. So we randomly selected 30 universities ranked 1 to 200 in each country, and each selected college has similar rankings in at least 2 different ranking systems in July 2015. So for the US, we used the US News and World Report ranking and the academic ranking of world universities. In China, we used 2 famous rankings. This is the list of universities that are included in our study for the US. And this is the list for China. We randomly sampled 30 profiles, 15 of each gender, for each college on Facebook, which had a 72% penetration rate among college students in the US. And RenRen, which is the Facebook analog for students in China, where Facebook is blocked. RenRen had 280 million members in 2013. To avoid any unobserved influence from proprietary search engine algorithms, we selected profiles based upon a random number from 1 to 200, generated prior to selecting profiles from the search engine results. So, and we drew the number twice in case the profile indicated by the original number did not have the required information or the quality of photo that we needed. The profile was of a student who graduated from college in 2012. The photo must be clear color front view photo without any head cover. We paid raters about 5 RMB to rate 100 photos in China and 75 cents to rate 100 photos in the US. The 5 RMB is about 75 cents in US dollar equivalent. The subjects rated all profile photos using a proprietary beauty rating program that we created, accessible through a standard web browser. Each photo in the program is randomly matched with 10 other photos of the same gender in the same country. There were 4,500 photo pairs generated for each gender for each country. And the raters were asked to choose the more physically attractive between each of the 500 pairs. The software then aggregates the rating for each photo into a number between 0 and 1, 0 for the least attractive, 1 for the most attractive. The rating represents the share of other photos that reviewers on average found less attractive. So in the US, each photo is rated approximately 12 to 37 times. I say approximately because it was random, and averaging 22 times. In China, each photo is rated between 12 and 28 times, averaging 20 times. In total, 90 Chinese raters, 60 male, rated 900 Chinese photos. And in the US, 103 raters, 49 male, 86 white, rated 900 US photos. The Chinese raters were students from Peking University, recruited through mass email, and the US raters were recruited through Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is a project-based employment service. Okay, one of the ways that we deviated from prior studies is that we used instead of asking raters for a numerical rating within a certain range of numbers as a standard in the field, we followed the methodology in a prior paper of mine, and we asked raters to decide only which photo of a pair is better looking. This binary judgment may be easier and more precise than assigning a number to indicate how good looking someone is according to a numerical scale. Numerical beauty ratings can cluster around specific numbers. So in one famous survey in China that I've looked at, 50% of the people were rated as 6 out of 7. A given subject may not be consistent in the beauty ratings across a number of photos because of fatigue, lapses in memory, or because their subjective reference benchmark level of beauty changes as they rate photos. In contrast, binary decisions require discerning only the minimal difference in beauty between 2 photos in side-by-side comparisons. The subjects do not need to strain the memory to maintain the consistency of the ratings for photos with similar beauty if these photos happen to be meant to have many other intervening photos. With a binary comparison, the accuracy of a subject's memory is no longer an issue, and binary decisions avoid potential scale differences across individuals, genders, and countries. For example, where Chinese female raters may choose higher numbers than American male raters, and that can add noise to our data. To deal with these sources of noise, prior studies coarsened their ratings their 1 to 7 scale data into 3 categories, below, at, or above average beauty. But this would sacrifice the precision that we exploit to establish our hypothesis. Lastly, our reliance on binary choices of raters means that our beauty ranking is a relative ranking within the sample, and not a potentially out-of-sample absolute ranking against unobserved subjective prototypes of beauty that the subject has in mind and uses as a benchmark. We had 27 other raters categorized the same photos, the US photos, by race. So almost all the Chinese are Han. In the US, we have 4 races that we categorize people into: white, black, Hispanic, and Asian. And also in China, college students are all between the age of 20. All of our profiles between the age of 23 and 26, because it's very rare for Chinese students to take time off between high school and college. We had these raters rate the age ranges for the US for whether they were between 23 and 26 or 27 and older. Each rater categorized 100 photos. Each photo was categorized 3 times by 3 different raters. The final race and age of the photos is determined by the ratings of the majority of raters, 2 or 3 out of 3. Okay, so here's some summary statistics. So for the 900 profiles that we sampled in the US, 666 were white, and about half were women in this sample. And among the women, about a third were older than 27, and among the men, about a half were older than 27. Here's some summary statistics of the photo ratings. So we find that the average white rating among US men is higher than the average non-white rating. And also among women, US women, the average white rating is higher than the non-white rating. So the main regression we're going to do is one in which we're going to have the college rank as the dependent variable and the beauty rating as the independent variable. We need to control for things like age, and that's awkward to do if we have this kind of regression, because what we're going to be estimating is the effect of age on the college rank. So to avoid that regression, what we're first going to do is take the residual of the rating, where we control for things like age. So we're going to do the regression in 2 stages. In the first stage, we're going to control for things like age, display rank, and race. And then we're going to use the residual for the independent variable in the main regression. So in this regression, in the first stage regression, we're going to regress rating on the display rank and whether the display rank was the original one or was the second draw. And for US photos, we're also going to include an age dummy and race dummies. Okay, so here are the results for the first stage regression. We find that the beauty rating of older US women is lower. For Black women is lower than the average. And then also we find that Asian men and women's rating is lower than the average. Interestingly, we find that the display rank for Facebook is uncorrelated with the beauty of the profile. But in China, the display rank on RenRen is negatively correlated, meaning that the lower down you go in the search result, the less attractive the profile is. Okay. In order to, so we also took the negative of the residual of the rating because it's convenient to have smaller the smaller beauty rank, the smaller numerical value of the beauty rank correspond to, so in other words, a higher beauty rank correspond to the smaller numerical value of the college rank, that is the more prestigious college. So we took the negative in order to get that, and we also added 0.5, which was taken out in the first regression, by the first regression. So the main regression is the log of the college rank on the beauty rank defined here. We took the log because we expect increasing returns to beauty, so high ranked, that is lower number ranked colleges have a larger pool of applicants and can afford to be choosier by soft discretionary criteria in filling their incoming class. Also, we expect that the marginal value of an increase in rank for applicants to high-ranked colleges, that is going from second to first rank, would be larger than from low-ranked colleges, that is going from top 200 to top 199. In any case, our results are qualitatively identical without the log of the college rank. So here, starting our main results, we find that the beauty rank is uncorrelated with college rank for both Chinese men and women. We find that the beauty rank is only significantly positively correlated with college rank for US men. And when we divide the men up by race, we find that it's the white men that's positively correlated. The beauty of white men is positively correlated with the college rank, not non-white men. And for women, neither non-white nor white women's beauty rank is correlated with their college rank. Here's a graph of the data for white women and white men. The horizontal axis is the beauty rank. So a smaller number is a higher beauty rank, given that we inverted it. And the vertical axis is the college rank. So this graph says that better looking men go to more prestigious colleges. This graph for women shows a U shape and it's not significant. So we don't have a significant result for the women. Okay, when we break up the data for white men by the kind of school that they graduated from, we find that the coefficient for private is larger than this for public. And also, and the difference is significant, as can be seen by this regression here, where we use a dummy for private. So we wanted to find out whether it's a top private or the bottom private that was driving our results. Since the number of private schools is not very high, what we did instead is to drop the top private and see what the coefficient is. So the coefficient goes down. And if we drop the bottom private, the coefficient goes up. So this suggests that there's a stronger effect for top private, as we had suspected earlier in our use of the log. We find that for tech schools, there's no significant correlation between the beauty rank of the alumni and the rank of the school. But for non-tech schools, it is significant. However, the difference between the two are not significant. To get a sense of the impact on wages, I used data from the Economist magazine survey that they designed for college wage to find out the monetary impact of going to a higher college. I do a simple regression of the mean salary 6 years after graduation, or 6 years after the students enrolled in college, not necessarily 6 years after graduation, 10 years after they enrolled in college, and I would expect 6 years after graduation. So I find that the mean salary decreases by about $374 for a 1 unit decrease in rank. And then the median salary shows a decrease of $471 for a 1 unit decrease in rank. So this is suggestive. The sample size is quite small. Okay, so let me summarize the results so far. We find that facial beauty rank of alumni of either gender has no economically or statistically significant effect on the rank of the college they attended in China. The rank of the college attended in China increases on the beauty rank of male alumni, but not female alumni in the US. And only the rank of the college attended of white male alumni are significantly associated with their beauty rank. The college rank of white female alumni and non-white alumni of either gender are not significantly associated with the beauty rank. The association of college rank and beauty for white male alumni is strongest for higher ranked private colleges, weakest for technology colleges, and an increase in the beauty rank of 33 percentage points is associated with roughly a 10 percentage point higher salary 6 years. That's a typo, it should be 10 years after they registered. The lack of association between beauty rank and college rank for China suggests that academic ability, as measured by standardized test scores, is not associated with facial beauty. It also suggests that socioeconomic status, which leads to more resources for test preparation, seems also not associated with beauty. So I don't have a paper to cite on this, but I'm pretty sure that the students at higher ranked schools come from richer families because it's quite expensive to prepare for these tests, prepare well for these tests. White women and non-whites of either gender in the US. So we find also the lack of association between beauty rank and college rank for white women and non-whites of either gender in the US. And that suggests that facial beauty is not associated with academic ability measured by grades, letters of recommendation, and even extracurricular activities in general. To explain the beauty premium for white men, we need non-academic factors which might specifically benefit white men in the admissions process. So before I get to that, I should address some possible endogeneity issues. So selection by beauty into social media seems an unlikely explanation for our results for white men. If men tend to self-select into social media by beauty and the rank of the college, we would expect that they would in China. And similarly, we would expect that white women, non-white minorities, and white men at technology colleges would do the same. Also, there is also the possibility of reverse causality, where people who attended higher ranked colleges make more money, and therefore they can afford better grooming, and they would look better in their photos. But again, if that were the case, we would expect that for men and women in China, and for white women and non-white minorities and white men in technology colleges in the US. So those do not seem to be very plausible explanations. What about the sexual jealousy of admissions officers? So as I mentioned, the correspondence study in Israel with CV suggests that. And there's a potential favoritism of teachers who may tend to be female or admissions officers for better looking male students. And that can help potentially explain our findings for men, particularly if they are more likely to be. So if the officers, the teachers are more likely to be female and white themselves, given a same race bias among women that was found in a prior study. And the possibility of teacher or admissions interviewer bias for better looking men is especially important for elite colleges like Harvard, which rely heavily upon interviews in the admissions process, particularly for athletes. However, we don't see a need to posit pervasive self-serving taste-based discrimination on the part of admissions officers. 28% of four-year college admissions directors in the US acknowledge using lower standards to admit athletes. Colleges benefit from favoritism to athletes. High-ability athletes bring positive attention by helping to win intercollegiate sports competitions. Such attention increases alumni donations, the number and quality of applicants, and allows the university to charge a higher tuition. At Harvard, the admissions rate for recruited athletes was 86%, which is 14 times higher than for students who are not recruited athletes. Recruited athletes make up over 10% of the admitted class, though they are 1% of the applicant pool. And importantly, for explaining our findings, 70% of the admitted recruited athletes at Harvard are white. So a key factor which connects athletic ability and male beauty is prenatal testosterone, prenatal exposure to androgens, testosterone. And this is indicated by the second to fourth digit ratio, 2D4D, in a number of studies in psychology. So what does the 2D4D ratio mean? So this is a picture of high 2D4D. So the second finger, which is the index finger, compared to the fourth finger, is long. And this is a picture of a low 2D4D hand. athletes tend to have a low 2D/4D ratio. So a low 2D/4D ratio is associated with a large body size, greater lean body mass, a more dominant personality, a greater propensity for risk-taking, a higher level of facial masculinity, and higher levels of facial masculinity is associated with higher attractiveness to women. A low 2D/4D ratio is a predictor of athletic prowess and success in highly competitive sports, including within the intercollegiate, within the college varsity setting. And so a preference for admitting male students, especially for the most popular varsity sports like football and basketball, likely selects for these physical and psychological traits, as well as height. Selection for higher levels of these stereotypically male features likely increases with the rank of the college, given a larger pool of applicants for highly ranked colleges. Thus, men at higher ranked colleges may be better looking as a byproduct because a preference for elite athletes in admissions selects for masculine features which are considered beautiful. Also, leadership contests among high school students may contribute to this. Right? So my recollections of high school is that many of the leadership contests were not much more than popularity contests, and beauty does increase popularity. Moreover, athletic ability, height, a large lean body, facial masculinity, and a daring and domineering personality may complement the stereotypically masculine traits of leaders in the West, and thereby contribute to the charisma and confidence expected of leaders, especially among adolescents. So, what about women? So the 2D/4D digit ratio of competitive female athletes are also lower than non-athletes, but there is little evidence to suggest that prenatal testosterone or androgens contributes to female facial attractiveness. Why white men and not all men or white women? White students from which families are the majority at elite private high schools are likely to have a similar range of varsity sports as elite colleges, and that will advantage white male athletes against minority athletes who tend to attend public schools. Also, private high schools are smaller than public high schools and tend to have more leadership opportunities, and that may advantage white male athletes against white female athletes who may be less likely to win leadership roles. Thus, a college admissions preference for athletes and high school leaders may specifically benefit athletic white men. Okay, so to summarize and interpret in light of the possible channel, we find no significant correlation between the beauty rank of alumni and the rank of the college they graduated from for Chinese students of either gender, white women, and non-white minorities of either gender, or for white men who graduated from technical college. In light of the finding that intelligence is not correlated with beauty, our finding would further suggest that beauty is not correlated with academic ability as measured by college ranking. We find a significant positive correlation between the beauty of white men and the rank of the college they attended, with the strongest correlation for those who attended private colleges. We suggest that a potential channel for the college admissions contribution to the labor market beauty premium for white men may be due to the favoritism colleges show towards athletes and leaders of high school clubs in admissions. And that could work through the three factors. So the athletic ability and traditional images of male beauty, think about Greek statues, the advantage that athletic men may have in high school leadership contests, and differences in athletic and leadership opportunities across private and public high schools. Our evidence suggests that the labor market beauty premium for men and women in China and for white women and non-white minorities of either gender in the West originates in the labor market, while that of white men may have a college admissions contribution. Okay, that is it. Glad to take questions or comments.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Really,
Thank you so much.
Information. So we've got chat window. Have them stick them in the window. Or wait for the.
So I should stop sharing.
You can do, yeah.
Or maybe somebody wants to see it. Okay, yeah.
Yep, yep. And maybe if someone wants to look at refer to a slide that you've got on your show.
Okay.
But Carl Singleton asks, could you have sense checked the beauty ratings for each person with some practice photos of people not in the Facebook sample, perhaps shown to some raters after the Facebook photos or some before?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you clearly. Could you say that more slowly, please?
Sure, yeah. Could you have sense checked the beauty ratings for each person with some
sense check?
Yeah, Carl, do you want to ask the question yourself? Actually, might be better.
Yeah. Hi, David.
Hi, Carl.
Sorry, background noise on my computer. Yeah, I was just wondering if you were sort of just checked whether the beauty ratings made sense for individuals, perhaps by showing them photos from outside the Facebook sample of celebrities or something else, just to see which, and you could kind of control for whether they kind of get those right, in a sense, if you showed them ugly celebrities versus beautiful celebrities. And likewise, if you could have also controlled for whether they tended to just click left and right, so maybe by showing them twins.
Yeah, okay, great. So the correlation between men and women is very high. It's about 0.92, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So there's correspondence between them. And then also we had the Chinese students rate the beauty of the US profiles, and that'll be in a follow-up paper. And we find that the correlation is also very high there as well. So there's quite a bit of agreement, and so that gives us confidence. Also, I have that previous paper I did, we found a very exquisite result that I think would be impossible if the data was very noisy. So it seems like this binary rating is very good. It's very precise data. I also checked the data to look at the people who were highly rated and lowly rated, and it did make sense. Does that answer your question, Carl?
Yeah, maybe a follow-up. I was just going to ask about, did you maybe look at the transitivity of the preferences of the different raters?
We cannot do that because we give raters random batches of. So we can't do things like rater fixed effects with our methodology. So like every photo is rated by 22 people, and yeah, so we haven't figured out a way to do that.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Zach asks, how prevalent are in-person interviews in the college admissions process?
In China or the US?
I guess both. You mentioned it in the US particularly, but I guess both really. Yeah.
So I don't have data, systematic data on how prevalent they are in the US. Beyond the study that was done on Harvard. So I just don't know in the US. In China, there are some subjects at a few schools where there's an interview channel, and I didn't include those slides here, but these are very small samples of the students, and they're for very specific reasons. So we don't expect those to affect our results. And actually, we did a set of robustness checks, and we found that they were not significant either.
Okay. Brad Humphreys asks, are more attractive people more likely to have social media profiles?
Yeah, so that's possible. And but to drive our results for, to drive our results, yeah. So the key thing is that there's a number of things that we don't observe, like selection into social media, and we have to rely upon the other results as a benchmark. So for the US, the benchmark would be the Chinese men and the Chinese women, and also the white women and non-white men and non-white women. And so whatever factor we can posit as a possible reason to select, we can't explain why it would only affect white men, and in particular, not at technical colleges. So that's the best we could. That's the best we could do. But we just cannot. I can't come up with a hypothesis to make white men different in terms of how they select into social media.
Okay, but then follows up saying some studies now use machine learning approaches to quantify attractiveness. This reduces bias from human raters. Have you considered the approach?
I have. The thing is that those, I don't know so for the computers to rate the beauty, they need to learn how to rate the beauty. So they would have to use the data that's available, and the data that's available does not use a binary rating. And as I said, my exposure to the data using non-binary ratings is that they're really coarse. So as I said, in China, there's a widely used data set which has the beauty ratings of people in a representative sample household survey, and 50% of the people are rated as a 6 out of 7. Almost no one's rated below 4, right? So the data is very clumpy, and I'm not sure how refined, I'm not sure exactly whether we can get any real results from how reliable the data can be when it's that clumpy. With our methodology, we can get arbitrarily fine distinctions. We can get somebody, if we have enough raters and enough photos, we can get, somebody who's the 949th rank out of 1,000 photos, for example.
I'd put a link in the chat window also, which I guess is something related to sort of face memorability. Wilmer Bainbridge website looking at, I guess, machine learning approaches. So you might want to check that out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if I might do that for a follow-up study. We'll see how that works. But we weren't aware of it at the time, and the methodology worked out really well for us in the previous paper, and I like the results were good for this paper as well.
Okay, yeah, Brad says it's a training data set for attractiveness.
Great, thank you.
Then there's a question that's come in via email, because a few people aren't able to use the chat, and so Stefan Szymanski asks, or says, I'm fairly sure that students at the University of Michigan, where he works, do not submit a photo with their application. And as far as I know, it's a practice that's generally frowned upon. Someone told me it may in fact be banned.
Wow, okay.
About 50,000 applications a year. Even those colleges that attract interviews are likely to have selected on the basis of a written application without a photo.
That's great. That's good to know. Yeah, if anybody also has other data or a citation of a systematic study of the rate at which people are interviewed, that'd be really good to know.
Okay, and then Pramod asks, it's a kind of clarification. He says, is it really ethical to do such things on Facebook? And he says, or is it kind of IRB assured? And I don't know what IRB stands for, but I Google it.
It's the ethics committee of the university. Right. So we use only public profiles. These are profiles that they're not private. So there's no legal restriction as far as I know for using public profiles. I mean, except like fraud and impersonation, which we're not engaged in. And also the Facebook contract that you sign off on when you submit stuff to Facebook is that the copyright belongs to Facebook and it's free to distribute the photos. And also this is for educational purposes. And in regards to IRB, there is we don't have IRBs in China, but there is a standard or what's called, it's a blanket rule for experimenters, which I'm part of the community of, that, and I can send a link on this, which is that as long as you don't expose people to harms that they're not normally exposed to, then it's generally permitted. And in this case, we had the photos ranked by people, and we didn't do anything with it afterwards. We didn't do anything with the ranking, so it's none of the information is public. It doesn't affect the reputation in any ways. I think it would fall under that exemption. So there's a general exemption for IRB that I think we fall under.
Okay, and that's that for questions that are in the chat window. So if anybody else has points they want to make or questions they want to raise, feel free to unmute your microphones and ask questions. Or you can use the hand as well to raise your hand if you would like to. So Stefan.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Stefan, do you want to ask?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hi, David.
Hi.
My point was, I'm not totally sure about this, but I think it's extremely rare in the US college admissions process to be required to send a photograph, and it's very rare to do an in-person interview. So, in the vast majority, and I know Harvard does do interviews, and some colleges do, but the vast majority don't send photographs. So I'm just wondering what the mechanism is if there's no way for the admissions people to have actually seen what you look like.
Yeah, okay. So I want to emphasize that the channel I'm proposing is not through interviews. The channel I'm proposing is that better looking men in particular are selected by higher ranked colleges because they're selected for athletic ability and for leadership experience only. And athletic ability is correlated with masculine features and traditional masculine leadership qualities. And so colleges inadvertently select for better looking men by selecting for elite athletes and students with leadership quality. So that's the reason why it's only men and not women. There's I tried to explain in the later slides that there's a coincidence between male beauty, traditional forms of male beauty, and athletic ability. Basically, when you say somebody's a jock, you're saying that they are probably pretty handsome. Like, the two are, in some sense, synonymous for men, but not for women. And so that is the channel that I'm proposing for why we're only finding this correlation for men. In effect, when you ask somebody, is this guy good looking, you're asking whether he looks athletic or not.
But hold on, I mean, again, at Michigan, we have something like 30,000 students, and we have about 300 male student athletes. So they're a tiny fraction of the population. I mean, you can't get a general effect from that small subsample, can you?
Okay, so maybe I should not. I don't know so this is one of the reasons I was looking forward to presenting to this audience. I don't know the setting for athletes, but so for elite athletes, for people who play on the varsity teams, I wonder though if you could get a leg up in the admissions process for even being a non-elite athlete. That is, you were a track and field, you ran on a track and field team in high school, and though you're not going to make the Michigan athletic teams, it makes you look more well-rounded. Is that reasonable?
Well, the only way anybody at Michigan is going to see you in person with a photo or in person is if you're recruiting for a scholarship, and those are extremely limited. In fact, of our 700 or so student athletes, not all of them are on scholarship. Only about half of them are on scholarship. The others are called what you call walk-ons, who don't even engage in athletics until they've been admitted and they're not on scholarship. So again, in the whole admissions process, their photograph was never seen, they were never interviewed.
Yeah.
So again, the number of students who've actually been recruited by in-person interview and then been granted a scholarship is again, it's a tiny fraction of the student population here.
Again, that's so the strict interview channel, I think it's unlikely. So I'm thinking about a situation where you have a student who has A's and B's. He's a well-ranked student. Would such a well-ranked student, a potential candidate, who is also the captain of the football team or was voted as a valuable player by the team or has some other honors, have a leg up against somebody else who has a similar grades, especially at high-ranked schools where you have a lot more applicants than places, right? So I'm thinking that high-ranked schools will use softer criteria in order to weed people out, and athletic ability, even if it's not at the elite level, could help with that. So I wonder if if the schools do that, right, then what I'm suggesting is that in effect, they're selecting for better looking men. By selecting for people who have athletic ability, they're in effect selecting for better looking men. There's that athletic channel, this athletic channel, but there's also an implicit athletic channel in terms of if the school selects for leaders. So I haven't seen a proper study of this, but I would imagine, I think there's some evidence that taller men are more likely to get into leadership positions, and taller men are also more likely to be athletes. And in the papers I cited, if you have high levels of androgens, prenatal androgen, if you were exposed to high levels of androgen prenatal, you're likely to be bigger. And so when colleges use soft criteria like extracurricular activities and or leadership experience, they could implicitly be selecting for men who have higher levels of exposure to androgens. And that's the channel through which beauty has an effect. Does that make sense, I wonder?
So I'd say two things. So firstly, I think you need to be very clear that the admissions process for student athletes on scholarship is very, very different from the admissions process for the general students. And the general admissions process involves no visual cues that I know of. Michigan, and it's fairly widespread. I mean, I was just looking online and saw somebody, I just sort of Googled, do you send a photo with your college admission? And I saw somebody from 10 years ago saying, I've never heard of that. So that was 10 years ago. So I think that's the first thing to say. It's very rare. And I think so. In terms of actually having seen anybody, the visual thing would have there's very limited scope for it to work in the college admissions process.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Carl puts in the chat window, what about beauty being correlated with parents' wealth and resources to tailor an application?
Yeah. So I was expecting that, and so I was kind of surprised at our results in China. Again, I haven't seen a systematic study of this, but my anecdotal evidence. So I taught at the #2 university in China, and all of the students come from upper middle class backgrounds. So I would guess that being upper middle class is really helpful for preparing for standardized tests, and should improve. And I would also guess that being richer was correlated with being better looking. So the results for China were quite surprising in showing no correlation. So apparently being richer is not better looking. And let me add that the reason why I came up with this hypothesis was that when I was in Davis, UC Davis, I would go to 10 seminars at Berkeley and Stanford. And I got the odd feeling that the students, the undergraduates and the graduate students were, well, the undergraduates were better looking at Stanford and Berkeley. So I thought, well, that makes sense because, because the US system uses extracurricular activities and grades. And then when I came to China, I visited the top two universities and then also the top 10. So I visited a bunch of universities, and the people looked just like everybody else. So I thought that was really interesting and worth doing a proper test on to see what was going on. So I expected that higher socioeconomic status would be correlated with beauty, and it doesn't seem to be. Facial beauty, yeah, it doesn't seem to be. I think if we were to have photos of the full person and you can see their clothes, then the results would be different. But facial beauty doesn't seem to be correlated.
Brad is then suggesting that he doubts that mechanism. It may work in the opposite direction if parents view college as a place to get the misses. I guess marriage markets explanation.
So I didn't catch the first part. So marriage market explanations would go in the opposite direction?
I don't know whether, Brad, do you want to explain it better than I can? Sorry, Brad was responding to Carl. Carl had a follow-up point saying, is it plausible about this beauty being correlated with the parents' wealth resources because it affects only US men and not women, according to your results?
Yeah. So for US women, it looks like a U shape, but it's very noisy. And I could come up with stories in the marriage market for why it's U-shaped. But the limited sample that we have of non-whites, like it's about 25% of our sample for men and women, don't show a correlation. And that seems to, well, it could be the correlation among non-whites are different. And so the heterogeneity makes the data noisy, but it could also be that it's not the marriage market. And again, if it were the marriage market, I would expect something similar in China, and we just don't find that. Or sorry, we don't find that for men in China, right? And so we find the lack of correlation for women in both countries.
And then Zach says that there might be a relevant paper in terms of thinking about potential mechanisms. He's linked the paper in the chat window, which
right.
is Ahead Above the Rest, Height and Adolescent Psychological Well-Being by 3 co-authors in Economics and Human Biology.
Great, thank you. There'll be a record of this, won't there?
Yes, yep. So within the team, once this call's over, you'll be able to access this.
Okay, yeah, I'll click on that. Thank you so much.
Okie dokie. Are there any other questions people want to ask, either by unmuting their mics or by putting them in the chat window? Well, we'll take that silence as a no. And it's enough to say, therefore, thank you, David, for a really interesting talk, a good discussion. Thank you for taking part in this 11th Reading online sport economics seminar. Thank you, David, for giving it. Thank you for everyone who's taken part, and wish you the best of the rest of your days and for your weekends, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same place. So
great. Thank you so much,
everybody.
and everyone else. Thank you. Bye-bye.